Ladies and gentlemen, let's game into the video. We're going to be discussing the Nintendo NX console, more specifically the technical capabilities of that system, and kind of putting some minds to rest. So, to give you the full story, just recently a leaked survey has popped up from the market research company GfK, and this survey, by the way, the company are the same company who collect the game sales data for the chart track in the United Kingdom. Everyone was going nuts because of a couple of points on the survey. So I'll read the entire survey out to you. Exclusive game franchises including Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong and more connect with Nintendo players around the world. Gameplay flows between the NX console and the NX handheld device. Earn and share gaming achievements, triumphs, defeats with your gaming friends and gaming community. Surf the web or make video calls to your TV, on your TV, excuse me. And this is the part that everyone got really in a flap about. Supports 4K 60fps video streaming and gameplay graphics at 900p/60fps. And then finally they also discuss what's in the box, which obviously includes the console itself, hopefully, considering you're going to be buying the damn thing. A sensor bar, a game controller, finally a HDMI cable. Oddly enough, they don't actually mention the power cord, but I'm going to assume that most people would probably just say, yeah, that's going to be kind of goes without saying. However, those specifications, while they are upsetting a lot of people, it's probable that the graphics info is not accurate. In fact, Emily Rogers has recently put out a tweet, and the tweet says verbatim, for what it's worth, "Today I spoke to trusted individuals who are working very closely with the NX, and they've told me that the GfK graphics info wasn't accurate at all." So what does this mean? Well, it probably means at the end of the day that this survey is just kind of collecting data. But before we finish the video off, because it's kind of easy to go there, let's go into this a little deeper, shall we? So I think the first 2 points, the exclusive game franchise and connect with other players, is a bit like me saying to you that the console is going to be, requiring power from the wall, or actually requires software to run. It's pretty much obvious at this point. In other words, saying that it has exclusive franchises is pretty obvious, and I don't feel that we need to contend either of those 2 points. Gameplay flows between the NX console and the NX device are rumours which have been pretty persistent throughout the life cycle of the rumours for the system. Ever since we heard the system was even a twinkle in Nintendo's eye, the very first things we heard about the system was there was going to be some kind of connectivity there. Unfortunately, and this very much goes with the same as the graphical rumours, we don't know how accurate they are. The thing about rumours is that they can be accurate at the time that they were told. So for the sake of argument, probably one of the more famous ones, infamous ones on the PlayStation 4 was the memory. So we all know that the system is going to have 4GB of GDDR5. If you were to look at leaks in, let's say, early 2013 or late 2012, there were so many different websites which were reporting that, because all the rest of the specifications are pretty damn accurate, by the way, for the system. The amount of GPU performance, CPU performance, the clock speeds of those particular components, the APU, the actual layout of the memory, the buses, all of that stuff was pretty accurate. The amount of memory bandwidth the system had, but 4GB of GDDR5 memory was being reported. It wasn't until the midnight hour that Sony decided to switch things up and go with 8GB. Now, how they managed that, I'm going to assume it was just simply because the larger DIMMs, larger GDDR5s were becoming cheaper, therefore they decided, because obviously memory for next generation systems is going to be at a premium, and I don't just mean in terms of cost, but I also mean in terms of utilization. Let's have a look at how much memory is used on the PlayStation 4. It's around 5.5GB available for developers, unless Sony have changed things with the latest SDK and firmware updates, which is entirely possible. There's around 5.5GB available for the system, as we've covered in depth, and this is not just according to some internet rumours, these are according to developers such as Naughty Dog when they've given GDC breakdowns. So in other words, rumours can be accurate up until a point. Unfortunately, you don't really know which rumours are accurate and which rumours are inaccurate. Now, support for 4K 60fps video streaming, I wouldn't be surprised. Now, what we can probably guess, it depends heavily on the next generation of chips used. I could almost get behind that based upon what we've heard of AMD's latest APUs, or the more specifically the GCN architecture updates, because supposedly the next generation Polaris architecture can handle that, and you can actually do video encoding and decoding, so you could theoretically encode 4K on the fly with basically taking no GPU or CPU cycles. But obviously that would depend on if the NX is using the Polaris architecture or even using AMD at all. It probably is, and I say that based upon some consistent rumours, some comments from AMD, not really to me, but just at investors' conferences and just kind of offhand, off-the-cuff remarks, and the fact that Nintendo do have a relationship at the end of the day with AMD. They've used them several times over now, even back at ATI, they used them for the GameCube, they used them for the, of course, well, goes without saying, they used them for the Wii and the Wii U, because obviously they're just evolutions of the same hardware, and they've also of course got a good relationship with IBM as well, because of once again the relationship they had starting with the GameCube. There are some rumours that are concerning the fact that it could be Android based, which is entirely possible. It could be x86 based CPU, or even an ARM based CPU. Potentially it could be an ARM based configuration, but the gameplay graphics at 900p 60fps, everyone was kind of going on a flap about that, saying, oh, it's not as powerful as the PS4, it's only going to be as powerful as the PS4, it's only going to be as powerful as X. The problem is, it's really difficult to ascertain based upon resolution and frame rate how good graphics are. Now, when it comes to resolution, it's simply how many pixels are there on screen. It doesn't necessarily mean the quality of those pixels. In other words, I could load up Quake 2, for the sake of argument, on a Voodoo free graphics card, which was released in like 99, 2000, something like that, and that game could run at 1600 by 1200 for the sake of argument, if you've got the monitor capable of doing that. And yeah, you could run that, that'd be fine, but is that comparable to like running, let's say, a modern game, let's say Crisis 3, which is not super modern, but it's pretty modern, at, let's say, 900p on the PC, or 1080p, which is technically a higher resolution than 1600 by 1200? The answer is no, of course not. Crisis 3 looks considerably better. So, the quality of those pixels, I did hear some people say, well, 900p on the NX is going to be the same as 900p on the PlayStation 4. Is it? I mean, it's possible that it would be, but once again, 900p is such a rough guesstimate, unless Nintendo are saying that games have to be minimum of 900p 60fps. Maybe that's where they're going with that. So that's standard. But remember, Microsoft did do very similar, although they kind of broke it early on in the Xbox 360 life cycle. Do you remember when they said that games have to be a minimum of 720p? But of course, it turned out certain games, for example, even Perfect Dark Zero, it had to be natively upscaled, and it wasn't. I can't remember which one it was. I don't remember if it was horizontal or vertical. It could have even been both, but one of them wasn't quite at that, and it was a whole thing. And the game just kind of had this bit of a stretched look simply because of that, and it had to internally upscale it. And 60 FPS, once again, 60 FPS is simply how many times, essentially, the GPU is drawing a frame of data or a frame of animation. So that's not particularly technical explanation, but if you're targeting 60 FPS, it gives you considerably lower amounts of time per frame of animation to draw those than 30. So it's like people getting upset about gameplay and graphics at 900p 60 FPS. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not a better looking system than, let's say, the PlayStation 4, which is running at 1080p 30fps in a lot of its games. But this is all kind of mute, because it doesn't look like these specifications are accurate, and personally, I don't think they will be. we've heard other rumours for the system, and this is, I think we discussed it about 2 months ago, it was late 2015, that certain developers had seen the system in use, and they'd, I guess you could say, compared it to a high-end PC. The problem is high-end PC is such a loose terminology as well. It's like, what's high-end? I mean, technically speaking, a £200 graphics card is actually high-end compared to the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One. I mean, honestly, the R9 380X, for sake of argument, ruffle stomps the PlayStation 4 in terms of raw GPU performance. It's true. I mean, just for the sake of demonstration, Resident Evil 0 on the PlayStation 4 and on the PlayStation 4 runs at 30 FPS with lower amounts of anisotropic anti-aliasing than the PC version, which doesn't really require much if you look at the requirements, the actual highest settings to run at 60 FPS at the highest settings. It doesn't really require that much of a beast of a PC. So to say that it runs, you know, comparably to a high-spec PC doesn't, once again, give us that much information. However, I think the most consistent rumours are that the system will be a combination of handheld and, I guess you could say, local play. I'm not sure how that's going to work. In reality, are they going to be two separate systems? Does it mean that, let's say, it's going to have a low-power mode if you're streaming, or you're, you know, on the bus, but it's got a high power mode where if you're at a, let's say, in your home, then it would work accordingly. And then we've heard those other really bizarre rumours, which is essentially the system will work on like a network, so every NX it can find, it will basically hook up to that and use it as a, I guess you could say, like a cluster server, and those systems can be used to increase and augment the graphical capabilities and the performance of the hardware. Really bizarre shit, to be honest with you. And unfortunately, we probably won't know much until the system's unveiled. Nintendo are being super duper secretive with this thing. And I have to say, they're being a lot more successful in their secrecy than what either Microsoft or Sony did. Because, once again, concrete details of that system were leaked a couple of years before the system actually finally was launched. You know, we got at least some ideas of where, you know, it was going with that. 2012, 2013 was when they released. So okay, just over a year, we got some solid final details, and it's just kind of weird that Nintendo have been so closely guarded with its specifications. So don't worry about this stuff. At the end of the day, it's probable that this is not accurate at all. So yeah. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.